welcome to the Sanctuary, a safe space to speak from the heart. I'm your host, Israel, and my guest today is illustrator, artist, my really good friend, and someone that's working on my secret project, Briana Corr Scott. Thanks for coming to the Sanctuary today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been a weird year for everyone, but I just think where summer's coming up, my mood is really lifting and feeling more hopeful. So,
Mm. Well, I guess, let's just start with that. March last year, I think that's when it all kind of started, right?
yeah,
The
I would say.
lockdown. How was the very first lockdown for you?
Um, I just remember it feeling really tense because everyone was scared and concerned and just worried about, if you weren't worried about getting sick, you're worried about your job and all of that. So it was just, I just remember the tension. That was kind of the biggest thing. Like everyone was just kind of really stressed. And I definitely felt that in my own household. Like we were just all really kind of tense and wondering what the next day would bring.
Mm. What were some things that it changed in your in your practice, like, before and after it started?
Yeah, so I have three kids, so they were home from school, and so that changed my practice a whole lot because there wasn't. I lost my work time basically, and so we were doing homeschool at that time, and there wasn't any time for me to work. But my making art for me, it's my joy, it's my happiness, but it's also what I do for my mental health. And so at that time, I found that I just needed to kind of give myself an assignment. So I gave myself small little tasks I had to do in the studio that would only take about 20 minutes because that's all the time I had to work with.
Mm. Did you? I mean, you also get commissions and do things for like CBC. Did How did you adapt to do some of those things you had to do?
Yeah, my freelance work, it was kind of on pause for March and April, but then in May and through the summer it picked up again. But my kids were still home, so I just found I was calling it the second shift. So the kids would go to bed and I'd go to the studio at, 9 at night and just kind of work till midnight. And I'd get a little more time first thing in the morning as well. So I don't love working that way, but it got things done and we got through it. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, now things are really changing. Most people have gone. I actually had my vaccine the other day, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but it wasn't like all good either. I think the thing was just my shoulder. I was really sore for days and days.
yeah, same.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. But like life is opening up now. How are you feeling about that?
Oh, it's really exciting. Most of my family lives in the States and I haven't seen them since 2019, I guess. So it'd be awesome to
Mm.
see some family again. And I'm sure everyone's in that boat where they're not seeing people that they love. So that's kind of the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to.
One thing I didn't mention when I was introducing you is you're an author too. You have two books now.
Uh, three books and
Oh my
one on
god,
the
three
way.
books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's before we get to the let's start with the books. What made you write the very first one? So I know Selkie and Wildflower. Which one is the first one?
The first one was called She Dreams of Sable Island.
Oh yeah, 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 the
Yeah.
horses. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
So I wanted to be an author probably since the age of 6.
Oh.
I had this awesome first grade teacher named Mrs. Cronholm, and she saw how much I loved art and thought I was great at it, and saw how much I liked to write stories. So she helped me and my mom enter this book writing contest. And you had to make a book. My mom had to learn how to bind a book, and she was typing all the words on the typewriter for me. And we made this book, and that's when I felt that spark. And it just, I can still remember being 6 years old and holding this book in my hand and just knowing I have to do this again. This has to be something that I do. So I would say I've been chasing that my whole life, but it didn't really happen for me until 2017. That's when I sent in my first manuscript, and that got accepted. So.
Oh, wow. 1 for 1.
Yeah.
Why did it take so long to send in anything?
I don't know. I think it was a little bit of fear and a little bit of, it was such a big dream that I've had for so long that the thought of it not working out was getting in the way. You know, if someone said no, or if this didn't happen. So it took a lot of, I think, growing up and just learning to just put yourself out there, and that you don't get one chance at something. You can try something 100 times if you want. But that took me a while to learn. So that's what got in my way.
And why did you decide to make that book your first one?
That one I felt inside of myself when I wrote the poem for that book. I felt such like a desire and a need to get that into the world that I couldn't ignore it. And I actually wrote the poem, put it in a notebook, and put it on the shelf. And I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was just a voice somewhere inside me saying, nope, you have to send that to someone. That one has to be it. And I tried to ignore it. But I think if you try to ignore something for a long time, that's a sign that it's art that you need to make. So that's why I decided to send it in. I just couldn't ignore that wiser voice inside of me.
And then you send it, you hear back, it's like, let's do this. How did that feel?
Oh, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I kept reading the email over and over again. I couldn't, because it was the first piece of writing I had ever showed anybody. And that's such a vulnerable feeling. And to have that first thing accepted, I think that is very rare. And that's not lost on me, because it's really hard to write a book and have it accepted at all. So I was just so overjoyed.
So, but by now you've been doing a lot of your illustrations and animation, stop motion, all these things. So like, but the writing was still an itch you had to scratch, right?
Yeah. So I'm always writing all the time, and just not everything turns into a book, but I'm less afraid about showing people now, obviously, because, you know, once you do something once, you kind of, you know, get the courage to keep going. So like with the drawing and painting thing also start at that early, like you mentioned with your teacher? Yeah, I would say younger than that. I think my parents said I told them I wanted to be an artist when I was 4. So probably as soon as I knew what an artist was, I was like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
What do you find attractive about being an artist?
It's just who I am. I can't really separate it as something separate. Like, I'm always drawing and always making art, and it's just part of me, I think, because I've been doing it so long. And I feel strange if I go a couple days not making art. Like, I feel really like I don't feel like myself. And so it's just a huge part of me. I don't think I could separate it out.
So you did the one Sable Island, and then how long did it take you to make Selkie? Like, did you start working on Selkie right away?
Well, the publisher was lucky in that I had been sitting on a pile of books that I had never sent in. So I just started going through kind of my old pile of books that I hadn't shown anyone. So Selkie was sitting there, and I said this would be a good second book, and they loved that one too. So.
So, like, was there a lot of work to do, or since it was already done?
Yeah, it's a lot of work. So the first manuscript, It gets rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. So there's a lot of editing work. So from start to finish, it takes a year to make one of the books.
Mm-hmm.
And the editing process takes a couple months, just going back and forth with the editor. And I love that process. I love getting feedback and hearing someone else's viewpoint on what I've written. So that's something that I've learned, that I do really well with feedback. And, being an artist working in a studio by yourself, you don't always get that feedback, but it's something I've learned to seek out, because my art gets so much better when I have that opportunity.
Mm. So the what were the first and second book about?
The
The first two books, what were they
Oh
about?
yeah, so She Dreams of Sable Island was a poem that I wrote about my desire to go to Sable Island. So I had been wanting to make art on Sable Island for about a year, and I had booked a trip to go, and it got canceled because of weather. And I decided I needed to move on, and that I probably wasn't going to go to Sable Island. So I wrote this poem just to kind of get those feelings out of my body. And that's the poem that ended up being the book. And in the end, I did go to Sable Island, and everything I'd written about was true. So that was great to see. And so it's about a girl going to Sable Island in a dream, like a cloud of fog takes her to the island, and she just explores all of the natural wonders that are there.
Mm. How do you like? Do you like go on a boat or fly, or how do you get to the
Um,
island?
you can go, there's a couple tours that can take you there, but one's by helicopter, I think, and one's on a boat, and one's on a plane. So I went on Sable Island Air, which is a six-seater plane.
Oh my God! I hate
Yeah.
small planes.
Oh my
I
gosh. I had
can't
never been
stand.
on one. It was it's awful. It was like a minivan in the sky. That's what I
Oh
was
man, it's
saying.
so uncomfortable. You feel everything. I
Oh
don't know how
yeah.
people fly those small planes
I
with
don't
like
know
two,
either.
like no. So I lived in South Africa for a while, and there's a town called Neisner. So I lived in Cape Town, and Neisner to Cape Town is maybe a 2 or 3 hour drive. But
Okay.
you can get like, like a 30-minute flight. I was like, fuck
Right.
it, I'm not gonna stay in a car. I go to the airport. I'm looking at this tiny thing. I'm like, okay, oh my God, I'm gonna die today. Like, like it's not like I'm scared of flying, but like, oh man, the turbulence in a tiny plane is not fun. It's
No.
not fun. You feel every single thing, and for some reason, it was so cold. But yeah, okay, so
Yeah. But yeah, and it was the same for this flight. The flight was smooth. It was great, but we had to land on the beach. There's no runway. So that was kind of wild.
Oh, so how long were you on the island for?
Just for a day. You're not allowed to stay overnight unless you're like
Oh,
a scientist or a researcher. So,
oh, okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Anyway, so you like get there and then your book actually comes to life for this
Yeah,
whole
because
day.
I had already written the book,
Mm,
and I just kind of saw it all appear before my eyes. So that was
mm.
magical. And then after that trip, I sent in the manuscript. I'm like, yeah, I have to do this. So, yeah.
And Selkie.
And Selkie, I took an old folk tale from Scotland and Ireland about it's about a magical creature or fairy that lives half their life as a seal and half their life as a human. And there's
Mm.
all types of beautiful, dark Celtic stories about Selkies, and I've always loved them, but they are very dark, and I wanted to rewrite them for a younger art audience. So I took all those old folk tales and then made my own.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, so let's pause with the books for a while, cause we'll talk about the third one soon.
Yeah.
But let's go back. Right, you're 4 and you tell your parents you want to be an artist. Like, did you? So practice art most of high school. Did you like do any arts out of high school? Like, go to school for arts or something?
Not in high school. I took some painting lessons, but um, I was just in a room with art supplies all the time. That's just kind of where I learned. And um, I did go to art college, so I went to art school after high school,
Mm.
and that was in Boston at the Massachusetts College of Art. And that was really wonderful because Boston has so many other art schools and also a huge arts community and so many museums. And that was, I feel like museums is where I really, really fell in love with art and painting.
Oh, how?
Just being able, because I was an art student in Boston, they give you a pass. So I could go to any museum without paying.
Oh,
And
nice.
I took full advantage of that. And just every museum I could go to, I went. And
Mm.
I made it a point every week to just, like, I didn't take that pass for granted and I really used it.
Right.
And there's such a difference seeing a painting in a book than standing in front of it, especially
Mm.
when you're learning how to paint and you can see the actual painting in front of your eyes that someone else has made, and you can take it apart with your eyes in this craftsman type of way, like you're looking at the structure and how thick paint strokes are and what do you think they used, and just even looking at the edges of a painting where you can kind of see the layers underneath and that type of thing. So um,
Oh.
I'm just so curious about paintings, that being in front of real life paintings, that's where I got a lot of my education, I feel like.
Mm. And then, like, did you find being in art school and just over the years, there were like type of subjects you'd love to paint?
Yeah, I did. I went to art school for illustration because I had this dream of being a children's book author and illustrator. But when I saw the illustration department, it was all computers and it wasn't appealing to me. So um, now at that point, I decided I'm going to switch to painting because I really just want to learn how to paint. So that was kind of the first thing that I learned. And then um, once I was in the painting department, so many people were painting in an abstract way, but
Mm.
that also wasn't for me. And I really like to paint things that are in front of me, so objects and people and all of the things that I write my stories about now. Basically, like I like to see the world, observe it, and then paint it. And I don't like to work from photographs. I prefer to work from real life experiences. So
Mm.
I learned that in school, but that was a hard lesson when your whole department is really focusing on abstract art, and then you stand up with your figure paintings and your still lives, and they're telling you you're archaic and ancient and all of that. So that toughened me up a little bit too, because I had to stand up for myself and stand up for the type of art that I wanted to make.
Mm. And then you're done with school. What next?
uh, I finished school, and my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, um, he's from Nova Scotia. So he was doing a work term in Boston, and then that's how we met. But after school, I was ready to see something else of the world, and he had to go back to Nova Scotia. So I said, "Yeah, let's go. Let's go there for a couple years." And we've been here for 15 now. So
And like, did you pause your art when you moved, or you just kept going?
I didn't plan on it because I thought we were just coming here for this like 2 year little adventure in Nova Scotia, and I thought I would go back to the States, and I thought I'd become an art teacher and then work on my art on the side. But those plans changed because we ended up staying in Nova Scotia. So we got married and we had kids, and I still made my art, but I hadn't really found that thing that I'm doing now that I love. So I started just experimenting with things like maybe I'll paint portraits, or maybe I was just trying to get little art jobs on my own. But I found it hard because I didn't have a community, and I wasn't able to work when I came. I was on a visitor visa. So, it was, how do you meet people? I always just, it's like get your job or that type of thing. So I didn't have any community. So it took a couple years to find um, that supportive community and really figure out what I was meant to do as an artist. But I just kept working through it. I just believed that if I showed up to my studio once a day and did something, an answer would come at some point.
What was the answer? Like, how did you find it?
I just followed this breadcrumb trail of just listening to that voice inside you that says, "Oh, I like this. This is interesting." That I guess it's curiosity. So it eventually led me away from painting portraits and that type of thing to just following nature. It turned out that nature was my thing. That is my happiness, and painting is my happiness. So I have to take those two things and blend them together. So just now I paint only natural objects and landscapes, and that is what I was meant to paint. So everything that I do, whether it's the books or the animations or any project, if I keep those two things at the heart of it, I'm honoring that voice that I have inside me.
Mm, mm. Yeah. You mentioned a happy place, and that's kind of the one of the I think it's the newest thing you've done with CBC now. You've done a couple of things with CBC. But before we touch it now, let's talk about the animation. How did that start? Because like you go to school and you had the chance to learn illustration right on computers and like, nope, nope.
Yep.
But then how did you now switch back to animate? Like how did you get into animating after doing all this painting?
Yeah, I always had an interest in animation, but like you said, I kind of shunned that in school. But um, I remember the first time I made an animation. I was in sixth grade, and
Oh.
my teacher had this bulletin board with everyone's little school picture on it, and he used to put like a flower behind the picture or a bumblebee or something, so it looked like the little kid's head was on a bumblebee. And every day at recess, I would just move a bumblebee closer to something else. It was almost like a very slow stop motion. So by the end of the week, a story had happened. Like the bumblebee had flown to a flower and then an action happened. And I remember then thinking like, oh, if I took a picture of this every day, it would be like a book. Like that's just always how my brain worked. So I've always kind of had this interest in stop motion. And, when I was that young, I didn't even know what stop motion was, but I was playing with it.
Mm.
So those kinds of ideas um, and have always kind of interested me. So now that I am making illustrations, I like to cut them up and make them move and play. It's that playing that's the fun part because the stop motion isn't really on the computer. It's playing with paper on a desk and making them move in these kind of slow, methodical ways. And I find that thrilling, and um, it's just so whimsical. It just really matches the spirit of everything else that I'm making now.
Yeah. It's so deliberate also though, and so slow.
Yeah, it's slow, and you have to be really. I don't know. I'm like a. Someone told me that I'm like a glutton for punishment because I really like. I really, if there's a hard way to do something, I'm interested in that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I could do the animation. I could learn a different way to do it on the computer. Like someone has showed me how to do it on Photoshop, and it's really fast. But I don't love it. It's like I like that. It's that whole thing of I like a real life experience. I like something with my hands, and I that's where the magic happens for me. So I have to kind of honor that. So if it takes a long time and it's slow and deliberate, that's just part of my process.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I worked on this thing, and I reached out to you because I saw what you did for CBC, and I think you did that. You did a couple of things during COVID too. So I was like, okay, let's work on this thing, and like you blew me away, and I feel so sad that I can't share it yet because I had to
Yeah,
put a pause because of COVID. But like,
right.
when and I guess I'm one of the worst people to work with because I say the most abstract things, and I remember saying,
Oh,
okay, so it's about like the east coast of Canada, and I just want to see this and this and this, and I didn't like really have say like a say specific brief, and you just
hmm,
blew it out of the water. When you have someone commissions you to make something like
yeah.
that, what's your process to take what they've said and then just make it come alive?
Yeah, it's different with every person. Like I find it funny that you said people think you're hard to work with because I thought you were the best person to work with because you left it really open. And as a creative person, I think you like we have a trust because like you're creative and I'm creative. We kind of trust that spirit that we have inside each other. So I think I love working with other creative people. And but every freelance project is different because people are coming from different places with it. Like sometimes people have a really nailed down idea of exactly what they want,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes people are more open like yourself where it's like, well, this is like a general idea of what I want, but let's see what you can do with it. So I
Mm.
have to say I gravitate more towards working with other creatives, and I like doing projects like that because I like bouncing with another person that's like in that creative kind of spirit.
Mm. How did you get to do the first thing you did with CBC, and then it's been like a partnership over 2 years now or so?
I've been doing things for them. Yeah, for the past, it definitely started during COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah, the past year and a half. They reached out and asked me to. They had an audio essay with no visuals, and they wanted some visuals for their social media and the newsreel. And it was an audio essay by Shalan Chowdhury, and she talked about the happiness and the the joy that you find when you're out in nature and being really still. And she
Mm.
went out in nature and filmed a lot of or recorded a lot of sounds, and also herself reading this essay about how that's so important for your mental health. And this
Mm.
was during COVID, so that's why that essay was really relevant. And they found they found me, and my art speaks to that. So it was a good kind of coupling for that project. And then we did a few more after that.
Mm. Mm. I think was like something for kids and how they were feeling through COVID, during COVID.
Yeah, that was a poem that I wrote called Little Islands. So it was about how I felt kids were dealing with um, being home from school and not being able to play with each other. So the kind of image that I was conjuring was that it was like all these little children were on their own island, kind of sending each other messages and flashing flashlights. And um, yeah, it's kind of a tearjerker little poem, but it was one of those things I couldn't ignore. I had to put out there. So
Like pretty much every book you've done.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, talking of books, let's talk about Wildflower. That one was smacked up in COVID. Um,
Yeah.
how did that one come about?
Yeah, so I had before COVID, I was at a art residency at the Burren College of Art, which is in County Clare in Ireland, and so that was in 2019, so the summer before COVID. And I was there. There's this place called the Burren, which is this rocky landscape. It's all hills and mountains just with all this kind of limestone rock,
Mm-hmm.
and all these rare wildflowers grow out of the cracks of the rocks. And there's an art school just nestled in at the bottom of one of these hills, and I've always wanted to go there and paint those flowers. So my family and I went for a month, and I just hiked and painted flowers, and that's when all my inspiration comes. So out in the hills, I started writing that book, and I came back and finished it and sent that in. And then I made most of Wildflower during the pandemic.
Mm, mm. And then, like, w- I guess why did you decide to, most people like you are working during COVID with kids and everything. Like at what point do you know? And this is just for all your books. So at what point do you know? Okay, it's ready to go out.
Um, I don't. I don't ever know. There just comes a moment when I have to send it in. I don't know. Um, it's the books come really fast because I'm so inspired that I have to get it down. So I think I wrote most of Wildflower just typing on my phone on a 12-hour drive back from my parents' house. So my husband was driving, and I said, I'm just not going to talk to you for a few hours, and just typed the whole book on my phone because it has to come out of my body. Like I
Mm-hmm.
have to get it out. And at that, once I get it down, it's a lot of little like edits and editing. And then it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, I need to send this in. It has to, happen. So.
Okay. Let's talk about the last thing you did with CBC, your happy place.
hmm Yeah, the happy place that started during this COVID time. At the start, I kind of mentioned during that first lockdown period, I gave myself little assignments to do every day in the studio just for 20 minutes. And what I wanted to focus on during that time was just why do I paint all the things that I paint? Like, why do I like wild horses and seals and flowers and I know I like nature as a whole, but what do these things represent to me? So I would take, one item every day and just write a paragraph about it and do a sketch of it. And that's all I had to do. And in the end, I just had, 30 definitions and meanings of of these 30 different objects that I paint over and over and over again. So it was like I had drawn a map or given
Mm.
myself like a visual vocabulary is what I was calling it. And that was so amazing because it's like those things are floating around in the back of your head and you're vaguely aware of it, but to have
Mm.
it just spelled out in this way, I felt really powerful and inspired that I had kind of gotten that out of my head.
Mm.
And in the end, it turned out all of these things were connected to my childhood and where I grew up and the nature experiences I had as a child. So that then developed into me making an imaginary place in my head that I called the happy place. And I drew a map of that. So it's a map of an island and it has different locations on it that all connect to these 30 words and images that I paint. So I called that my happy place. That's where I go in my head. That's the place that I go to make my art. So,
Mm.
what a wonderful thing during the pandemic that I had to go to a happy place. And I wanted to share that with people. And it was the strangest thing. I was working on this in my sketchbook every day.
Mm.
And I got an email from someone at CBC saying, we're doing a series on people's happy places. Do you have anything? And I had my sketchbook in front of me, like, how did you know? How did you know this was happening?
Yeah.
So it was a wonderful coincidence.
Mm.
And that's when I made it's a 3-minute animation where everyone gets to take a journey to my happy place. And that's all with stop motion.
Mm. I like that one. He started with the actual book and then he, went into
hmm
this fantastic place.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
With the happy place, I'm working on, I'd like to expand it into a series of short animations. And I
Oh.
don't know what the final format will look like. I don't know where it will be seen, but that's what I'm working on. So I'm going to write some grants this summer and see if I can make that happen. And
Nice.
then I'm working on another book for Nimbus that will come out next year. And I have lots of freelance projects. So yeah, I'm pretty busy right now, but it's awesome.
And then, okay, so you have 3 kids. Is any of them interested in art, or are they all interested in art at all?
They're all so wonderful at drawing and they're such good artists, but they would hate that I said that because I'm
Why?
they hate they just because people say all the time, like, oh, you must be a good artist because your mom's an artist. But the thing is, I'm their mom. I'm just not cool to them. So they don't want to be like me. And that's fine. So I think when they're older, they'll appreciate it all, I hope. And but I know secretly, I can't say it out loud to their faces, but they're all so good at art. It's just so wonderful. And I can't get too excited when they're drawing or something because they roll their eyes at me. But they all love it. Yeah, they're all really good at it.
Yeah, I mean, well, you're right. I guess when they're grown up, they'll know how super cool you are. And one thing I also want to touch about, like your Instagram,
Hmm.
it's crazy there. How do you manage that? How do you decide what you share, especially your captions also?
Yeah, I try to be really. My number one goal on Instagram is I'll just tell you what I'm really thinking. It's just
Mm,
authentic, and I'm not trying to be something else. So everything you read there is really what I'm thinking or feeling. And I think of it more just like a daily studio log. So you don't see tons of like my family life on there. It's really what's on my desk, what am I thinking, what am I working on today. So
mm,
I try to just um, have a relationship with Instagram that's like, oh, it just keeps me accountable, like a little diary or a log. So,
mm.
uh, like a little captain's log for what's going on. So, yeah. And then in my stories, I do share a little bit more about like my family life and things like that.
One of the posts that stood out to me. I mean, of course, I love your artwork, and thanks for the painting you gave me.
Oh,
Finally,
yeah. My pleasure.
but one of the things I love was the photo of you with a little white bunny.
Oh, yeah.
What's the story behind that picture?
Oh, my gosh. I was not in a good place in that photo. That was during this last lockdown that just happened, and
Mm,
that was, I mean, that was hard mentally for everyone, but for me it was like Nova Scotia was just chugging along and doing really good. And then in
right.
that, right, I guess it was like it's just you didn't feel it coming, like it just all of a sudden switched and the kids were home. And May and June, I had been saying all year to my family, May and June are going to be the busiest months of my year. And then we were all in lockdown. So it was like my
Mm,
busiest months for the freelance work. And then we're in lockdown. So in that moment, my son
mm.
was on his homeschool or at home learning with his teacher in class. And he had wanted to show the rabbit a show and tell. And I was in the closet with the rabbit, holding the rabbit, just kind of looking out the window, like, what am I doing right now? Like just feeling, I was just like, what, how did I get here? Like holding this rabbit in a closet, like, and my kids are all on computers in school and we're all in lockdown again. It was just like, I took the picture. I don't know why, but it's kind of a cool picture and people
It
really
is
liked it.
actually a cool picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned like I think we were lucky. Like the first we had
Yeah.
lockdowns, we did, but like
Yeah,
we're
we did.
still
Yeah.
better than most places on the planet,
Yes.
really.
Yeah.
And but this last one was really just brutal.
It was brutal. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say that they felt the same. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I always enjoy chatting with you, and I love your studio too. What's the like? Let's talk a bit about your studio.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, like, so you moved here. You moved to Nova Scotia years
Yeah.
ago. Like, how long did it take you to get your studio to where it's at now? And what do you
Hmm.
love about your studio?
Well, this
Apart from the
studio,
windows, oh my god, I
yeah,
love
the
how well lit it
windows.
is.
It is. Yeah, it's a beautiful space. So yeah, this is my studio now, and it's used to be a garage. And I'll send you a picture of what it looked like. You'll be shocked. But my husband, Troy, is an architect, so he's got some skills around there. And he was doing a project at Mount Allison University,
Mm.
and all those windows that are on the side of the studio that you love, those were getting thrown out. Those were
Oh.
coming down and getting tossed. And he asked everybody, he's like, if can I have those? Is anyone using those? They're like, no, you can have them. So those are all from a larger building at Mount Allison, and he just fitted them into the side of the garage so that it has all this light now.
Mm.
Yeah, and yeah, this space, my whole family uses it. We all come out here. My kids all have desks in here, and so everyone has like a workspace. And yeah, I spend most of the day out here. But this was first, it was Troy's first office when he opened his own firm. So it was, I think that's actually why it's so nice. I don't think a painter would be given such a lovely space, but it was a hand me down from his first architecture office. So
Okay.
I think that's also why it looks really cool.
Yeah, I know. I really love it. I love the lighting. It's just like you enter the
Yeah,
space and it's like,
it is.
I
Yeah.
mean, between the books, the Happy Place project, the kids, your husband, everything you're working on.
Yeah.
What are some things you do just for yourself apart from the painting?
Yeah. There's not a lot of time. Uh, I guess like I have, if there's like one thing I've learned through COVID is to prioritize that. So, what I learned that I do for myself is I love to walk with my friends. Like we'll just meet up because for a while that's all you could do.
Mm,
And, but I'm going to keep that habit up because I really like that kind of act of talking and walking at the same time.
mm,
And so I kind of make that a priority every week. Like during that last lockdown that we had when we couldn't see anybody, I really felt the absence of that, and that it was just so good for my soul to just see a person that I liked and talk while you walk around the lake or something for
mm,
an hour.
mm.
So I'm going to keep that going. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with this one. Um, I mean, there's a kid or someone out there watching, listening to this episode, and they're hearing you talk. You've come from this kid that was painting and writing books.
Hmm.
6 years old to a woman, a mom, created this life for yourself. Like,
Yeah.
what are things or like just some nuggets of wisdom you can share that you've learned over the years to get from I want to be this to actually leaving that thing you want to
Hmm.
be?
I'd say the biggest thing I could say is follow that curiosity and don't let other people interrupt that path
Mm,
because you don't know where it's going to take you. And you don't, say you're curious about stop motion animation. Well, it doesn't have to be you're going to be a stop motion animator someday. It might help you down the line with some other project that you do. So
mm,
listen to that curiosity. If you're interested in learning something, do it and don't think about the bigger outcome yet. Like just listen to that feeling, be curious, try that new thing, learn that new thing, and like the bigger picture will make sense when you get there. And because I do think that's how, because there was an easier path to become an illustrator and author. Like I could have gone to illustration school and then started writing publishers right out of school, but I don't think I would have been ready then. I had to take this longer windy path and satisfy all those curious notions. And now that I'm here, I was ready and I'm here. So
mm,
I think you have to not let other people tell you what to do and just follow your own curiosity.
mm, mm. Brianna, thank you so much. That's really really powerful, and it's something I know works. Cause like when you are just curious, you are excited to try it, and
Hmm.
that excitement kind of pushes through the difficulty. That's how I feel at least. So
Yeah.
so yeah, that's really that's I'm gonna write that. Actually, I did write that down.
Oh, nice. Good.
um, I just want to say thank you so much for coming to the sanctuary and for creating this cool thing. I can't wait to share.
I know. I
It's
can't wait
it's like
either.
so I know I think we are gonna get to phase 2 in like 1 week or 2 weeks. Then I'll be
Okay.
able to start shooting the
Awesome.
last part of this. So it should be ready. Definitely before fall, it'll be ready.
Oh,
Thank
good.
you so much for coming to the sanctuary. Thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing that super super awesome advice.
Awesome. Thanks so much.